Welcome back to the Slip Stitch YouTube channel. Now, I first recorded this video in July. It's now October the 2nd, and I was really struggling to edit it. And I realized that the reason it was so hard to edit was that it was bad. So, I'm having another run at it. That first time I recorded it, do you remember the heat wave that we had before summer? We had kind of bookend heat waves. The earth is doing so well. I was sitting in the basement in a heat wave trying to answer questions, and it was not the best. So we are in it's too hot for October, but it's less hot than it was then. I have my first pumpkin spice latte of the season, so all is well. And I have some questions that you sent in when we hit 100 subscribers, which we have now long surpassed, but still relevant. Do you like the set dressing? Another thing that was off was I was recording in the basement because of where the camera was. I was just inches from the camera at all times. This is a little opportunity to get to know me, to get to know my lovely store, for me to drink a coffee, mainly the latter. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. Let's get cracking. That's good. You ever get to the bottom of a pumpkin spice latte and find that it is not mixed? And you can really taste the kind of so orange it's black syrup. I can hear time. Well, let's start with some questions about me. The most important thing. A question I actually get a lot is what I did before I owned Slip Stitch, which is a very normal question with a convoluted and slightly strange answer. I have had, let's use a crafting simile or metaphor. It's a very patchwork career. I get asked if I did textiles or business at university. I did not. I did English literature, but then I did a master's in children's literature. So I'm really doubling down on the not used in a yarn shop. I did a couple of office jobs, and you know when people say, oh, where did you work? And be like, oh, you won't have heard of them. I worked for the Girl Guides and Moonpig.com. So just, you know, real punchline employers. And then in my 20s, I, in fact, just after I started at Moonpig.com, I got quite ill, or I got very ill, with ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and I had to leave work. And that was kind of my main job for about 5 years, some years. But during which I did, again, odd little bits and bobs. I would be on the radio sometimes. I did a series for Radio 4's film program. I was on Front Row a few times, did Women's Hour, because I was a columnist at The New Statesman. I once had a column of mine kind of sassily ripped apart the next week by Tony Blair. Just normal, innocent employment history. And then my recovery was going really well. I was on a lovely upwards trajectory, and I started working at the shop that was here before this shop, which was yarn, but also gifts and vintage, and so kind of nice things, shall we say. There's just a general category of lovely stuff. And I was working here 2 afternoons a week. Great decision if you're trying to recover from a chronic health condition. The shop was for sale, and I used to play, oh, if this was my shop, what would I do with it? And then I went to the knitting and stitching show. Everything I saw there, I'd be like, I'd have that, or maybe I'd do it like this. So people come and say, oh, I've been to the knitting and stitching show, and it's really dangerous because you buy too much. And I'm like, you're telling me I came home and bought a shop. So a month after I started, I asked about the business, which was already for sale. And a month after that, I signed a contract. And a month after that, the shop was mine. And that's absolutely medical advice. If you are coming out of a really long period of low energy, not working, suddenly start working full-time and own your own business and be responsible for other people's employment. That's my advice. So that's what I did. And it's changed a bunch since then, not least the name. It was called Fringe. It is now Slipstitch. I should have stress tested how hard it is to say that name to people on the phone. But they get it. They get it. It's fine. It's 5 years next January. So just after Christmas will be 5 years since I took over, which is horrifying. I had a couple of questions along the same theme, which was, what's the best thing about running the shop? What's my favorite thing about Slipstitch? What's the best thing about running the shop that isn't my lovely team? Which is very sensible, because that would be my number one answer. I get to work with my friends who love craft, so it's kind of great. The kind of serious answer is that because my health is not fully recovered, I still live with ME and various other things that make inhabiting this body quite tough. And if I worked, I just wouldn't be able to work a regular job, like a 9 to 5, like I did at my aforementioned comedy employers. Because I sometimes will just be in loads of pain for no good reason. Or if we've had a really big day at the shop, the next day I will not be up to coming in. It's a lot better than it was even when I took over, but being my own boss means that it's kind of ironic, really, because I have to be in charge. I have to have the most responsibility and technically the most stress being in charge, but it means that I get to have a job where I can say, I can't come in, or I say, like, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to sit on the sofa and I will swap money for goods and services, but I'm not going to do any other work. Where if I were in an office and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do half a day and I'm just going to sit in this chair and do like the sheer minimum, simply be a body present in the building, that it is not viable. So that's kind of the not fun answer, to be like, well, it's because I'm really ill. So it's really good for my ill old body. But that's also the fun bit, is being your own boss is pretty lit. It's great. Being self-employed does have loads of more difficult things about it than having, tax returns, for example. But no one can tell me what to wear, because I'm 16 and that's important to me. I worked at Lush. It was my first job. I was a Christmas temp at Lush. There were no seats. You weren't allowed to just stand behind the counter. You always had to be in motion. The main job was facing up, which was, if you go into Lush, you've got all these very uniform, very smart black pots of, product. We sell, things. We had to go and make sure that the product was facing out. Looked really smart. But if it was quiet, you just faced up all the product and no one had come and messed it up, you had to go back along the shelves and pretend to face up all the product. Because companies don't want your labor, they want the performance of your labor. And it was absurd. So the first thing I said when I took over the shop is, we are having a sofa. If you need to sit down, if you want to sit down, you can sit down. There is a stool behind the counter, because I get tired. Other people get tired. Being on your feet is tiring. So getting to be the person who says, hey, we're doing that, is pretty great. I mean, the main best thing, aside from the lovely team and being allowed to sit down when I want to, is I love craft. And I get to talk about craft all day. Now, sometimes that interacting with craft is me paying invoices for craft goods, or trying to set up new accounts with people who sell me craft goods. But it's all about the thing I love pretty much most, which is yarn. having a realization about myself. Yeah, and I love to craft. When I was ill and not working, I crafted just constantly. I watched Once Upon a Time and I knitted. That was 2016 for me. Yeah, so I get to base my life around sharing my favorite thing. You know, I get to teach people to do my favorite thing and then see them blossom into crafters. Someone came in and said, "You owe me an apology." I thought, oh God, what did I do? And she said, "You taught me how to do brioche and it has ruined my life because all I do now is knit brioche stitch." And I was like, oh, yeah, I will take responsibility for that. Coffee break. Oh, I forgot it was the really strong, but I'm gonna drink it again later. The tech setup here is cables everywhere. Now, we had a lot of questions about what we stock, which is not like, do you have 4mm needles in stock? We do, I actually just checked. But how you stock a shop, basically, because that's kind of the really exciting bit. My stash is too big. My personal stash of yarn is too big. Please never point out that technically the shop is my stash, because I find that very distressing. I used to say, oh my God, my stash is so huge. Oh God, I've got all this yarn. And I moved house a couple of years ago and I carried it all. I was moving literally around the corner. So I was just bagging it up and carrying it over. And then I had to unpack it all and go, wow, this is too much. This is too much wool, Rosie. I don't really buy yarn for myself anymore. So if you do have a yarn buying habit that you would like to kick, I can truly recommend just bumping that up to retail level, because you will stop buying wool on a personal level. Because I just get to exercise it and be like, I really want some new wool. I guess I'll buy it by the kilo. So I got asked how I choose what colours and what brands to stock. It is an ongoing puzzle. A thing I realize is that the shop it's never going to be done, which, as someone who loves to tick things off a list, is something I've had to make peace with, right? That you go, okay, we've got this yarn and this setup, and right, we've cracked it. We just sit back, reorder that when we need to, and that's the shop. Done. Never gonna happen. So I would say that mainly the stock system is vibes-based. How do I feel about this? Like, I guess it fits the vibe. In terms of actually the yarn, which is kind of the biggest, like haberdashery, right? You gotta have some things. Like knitting needles. And there is an extent to which you're like, great, that is kind of done. You know, once you've got needles, hooks, all the many other things we sell, making it sound like we sell two things. Yarn, however, there is an extent to which it's what do we have, what do we need. Aran yarn has been this ongoing thing where we get some in and then that one becomes unavailable and it disappears. And so for a while we kind of had 2 Aran yarns, and that's not enough. I don't mean 2 balls of yarn. That would really not be enough, but I mean 2 different lines. Yes, you can have one red or one white. That's it. So Charlotte and I have spent a lot of time just standing looking at the wool wall going, and trying to fill gaps. So you want a good range of yarn thicknesses. You want different price points within each yarn weight, probably a cotton in each weight. And then sometimes I just like something and our rep will say, hey, we also have this. And I'll go, yep, that and that too. That is nice. Color-wise, ideally, the whole range, right? If a yarn comes in 20 colors, ideally I will stock all 20. There are a couple where I find some of the colors so ugly, I don't stock those. I think there's one yarn where we have everything but 2 because I think they're vile. Then there are a couple of lines where there are so many colours, we have to pick and choose. The Rico Creative Cotton Aran, for example, comes in, I don't know, maybe 40 colours, 40, 50 colours. That's so much. I don't have that much. A whole shop is not that big. Like, where am I going to put it all? And then you think, well, we can just yes, you can put all the colours out, but there's overflow, right? There's overflow. So in that case, I have to do like absolute bases covered, right? We need a white, we need a black, we need a nice, like a cream and off-white. And West Yorkshire spinners, anything they come out with, I'll buy. Okay. And then like a secondary question, once again, forgot that coffee is not pleasant at this point. A secondary question to that one is things that I would love to stock and don't, and why. The short answer is everything. Because if somebody comes in and says, do you stock? I want to say yes. I want to say absolutely. We do all of that. And that's not always possible, because sometimes they might be the only person that will ever ask. And what we don't want is to have us to be like, yes, we get everything in, but everything comes in a pack of 5 and somebody only asks for it every 3 years. So it just gets old and dusty and faded and tired. And also, so a small business in terms of footprint and also in terms of purchasing power, which is that if I want to get everything I ever wanted for the shop, like I would love to have so many more fabrics. And at the moment we're concentrating on really good basics, so that if somebody comes in and says, my child has to be a tree in a school play tomorrow, we say, come this way. I mean, sometimes it changes. We had this running joke about tapestry wool for months, because maybe once a month, somebody would ring up and say, do you do tapestry wool? And we'd say, no, sorry. And I'd go, should we get tapestry wool? Obviously, can't really do that on one sale a month. And then it kept picking up. And one day 2 people rang the same morning. And I went, I guess we do have to get tapestry wool. And we now have a stand with 240 colours on it. And it's been great. And another question about the shop was, what are my next step goals? How can I get closer to my dream shop? Funnily, when I answered this in July, we were in, retail in summer is slow. Wool retail in summer, oh boy. So I think I answered, I was like, Mama, I just want to pay the bills, please. And this time I can say, well, I also said about my hideous old office, which had become a dumping ground for 2.5 years. And I was like, I wish I didn't have a room full of junk. I am very, very close now to not having a room full of junk. And that is going to basically it's been pointless for the last 2.5 years since I took over the studio downstairs. My office moved downstairs. That's been really good for me being able to get things done. This room just became an odd sort of sad, I think is the prevailing word, is just sad room. But it's pretty close. I have got rid of so much stuff. So, I mean, the thing is, if I get that sorted, what else could I achieve? It's kind of a bit naff to be like, I like it to just keep on trucking. But, because there's a difference between like, yeah, there's a wall I'd really like to paint, but that doesn't really feel like making it my dream shop. Maybe I should have bigger ambitions. It kind of is my dream shop in a weird way. Oh, that's really nice. This is going to be hideous. You could stand a spoon in that. I like it here, it's nice. We got a new vacuum cleaner. That's genuinely game-changing for this shop. What would I be doing if I wasn't running Slip Stitch? Well, I would be a professional organizer, which I understand, having just said I'm a woman who had a junk room for 2.5 years. You may not wish to employ for that purpose. But I love organizing things, especially other people's things. I love a system. I love a clear, flat surface. I would like to be Look, if this shop becomes self-sustaining, maybe I'll just work part-time here and part-time as a professional organizer. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Actually, yes, it would be so good. And then the last little batch of questions were about me and my craft. So, my own personal crafting journey. What is one craft item that you couldn't live without? The way I want to say adequate storage. Not just because I was talking about organizing, although maybe. It's been at the forefront of my mind because I'm going to have to move soon. And so the idea of packing up all of the yarn, quite a lot of which came into the house I'm in and is leaving in the same state. And it just is loose in an IKEA chest of drawers. Could maybe do with adequate storage. But that seems like such a boring answer. I do love my interchangeable needle set. I have pretty much every size of Knit Pro Symphony interchangeably. They are lovely needles. I've got some really nice project bags of adequate storage. I think it's storage. Really, the thing is, I'm really in craft for like this stuff. I love a hobby that comes with some quality tat, right? I was watching somebody do bobbin lace, and you get that like you could use a clothespin. Oh my god, as bobbins if you wanted to. But you can also get really beautiful carved and beaded ones. I love all my stitch markers. I've got a lot of nice stitch markers. I've got a little tin with the face of Judy Garland in that they live in. What is your favourite yarn to work with? I did an Instagram live yesterday about socks, and the number of times I said, this is West Yorkshire Spinners' signature 4-ply, was sobering. Yeah, I think it's possibly that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me a hand dye, I love me some fancy fibres, I love a wool alpaca blend. I do not like pure alpaca. There is a project in pure alpaca that is vexing me, but $8.95 for a pair of socks. I get 3 socks out of one ball of signature 4-ply. It smells so sheepy, which is my favorite thing. So good. The colors are really great. The prints are really great, like the self-stripy ones. You can purchase it from me. What more do you want? Now this one is interesting. So there are 2 that I'm slightly combining, which is what's your favorite pattern or designer? And are there any new patterns or designers who are inspiring you at the moment? I have restarted a project by Poison Girls. I mean, it's probably just Poison Girls, but it's spelled like Riot Girl. Poison Girls. You gotta do like Popeye mouth, right? Poison Girls do these really great vintage inspired sweaters. I have knitted the Betty and Judy Lodge sweater. It was my Christmas jumper a few years ago. I've knitted most of another one, which is called Beauty School, which I think I need to rip out because I don't think the size is right anymore. Which is both one of the problems of taking several years to knit your jumper, and also, I guess, the benefit in that I never finished it. So I never had it just and went, oh, it's the wrong size now. Yeah. And I'm working on the Rosemary Fisherman sweater by them. And I love it. And it's great. And I mean, I've loved this designer for ages. But that's very much at the forefront of my mind because that's what I'm working on. And it's like a proper fisherman's cables jumper, but slightly fitted. And it's called Rosemary, which is my name. Okay, the next one is best project you've ever made, and I need to go and get a prop. Hello. This is the best thing I've ever made, but I never wear it. This is, let's turn you the right side around. This is a lace weight, so 2-ply beaded lace shawl. It is called Scheherazade. Let's show it this way. And I did this 2015-16, I think. Show you the details, darling. So we've got this pretty complex lace pattern and then lots of beads. And the beads were done with a crochet hook as I went, as opposed to strung on before I started, because I think it sits more nicely in the stitch that way. This was such a... Okay, well, you can see that I was, not working. I had a lot of time on my hands, right? Because the cast off alone took several hours. It was hundreds of stitches. There's some of the first hand dye I ever bought. I don't know what it is. And I think it's incredible, right? As a piece of knitting, I haven't produced anything like this for a very long time. But I don't wear it. I display it. I use it basically to boast at knitting classes, where people are like, so what do you knit? And I'm like, oh, just this old thing. It's just not me, right? If I were to wear a lacy shawl, I went through definitely being very interested in really intricate lace shawls. My Ravelry favourites, if you scroll back to that kind of 2015-16 era, you'll see I favourited a lot of them. I've worn it as a bed jacket. That chronically ill life, am I right? Also, right, the main picture on Ravelry is this woman, and she's holding hers up like this, and at the points, and it comes all the way down sort of her knees, right? And I was like, oh, amazing. It's almost like a blanket, like a really big, I can just wrap myself up in. And I got this flippin' Sylvanian Families version of that. I went back and checked recently, and I realized that if you go to her project notes, because that's not the photo from the original designer, basically she says how many extra repeats she did. I did not realize that. So when this came out, I was like, who is this for? Like, I'm so proud of it. And I display it, but I don't wear it. Oh, I loved this question, which is, what's the best mistake you've ever made? Was it buying the shop? Am I right? Okay. But it was definitely in here, which is that I simply cannot leave well enough alone. If I spot a mistake, right, I will drop down dozens of rows to fix it. Even if it then looks worse. I have a jumper where you can see I laddered down to pick a stitch that I missed and pick it back up because it was double height stitch. And now there's an ever so slightly visible ladder that's much more visible than the stitch, but it is now correct, okay? Brains are really good. I remember doing it in this, which, as you might imagine, is quite complicated. And I was doing things like that decrease doesn't lie in the right direction, so I've got to drop down and swap the stitches over so that they lie in the right direction. But you're not just dropping down and doing that, because, you know, dropping down lovely stocking stitch, right? I would drop down and there would be yarn overs I'd have to pick up, and then other decreases to factor in. So sometimes, you know, I'd find the decrease, sort it out, and then have to do the decreases back up the row, which is a waste of everybody's time, but so useful for understanding your knitting. This project taught me how to read my knitting. And now I don't wear it, and the colours mean you can't see every individual stitch, but hey, it's not the point. Goodness me, I think that's all of the questions we got. I think this went better than the last one. But you'll never know, because you'll only ever see this one. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for subscribing and getting us to this 100 subscribers milestone some months ago. I thought it would be fun if every kind of 100, 1,000, 10,000 milestone we do a little Q&A. So hopefully we'll be back for the 1,000 one very soon. In the meantime, I hope you're enjoying your crafting, and that maybe you can treat yourself to a nicer, more refreshed beverage. I mean, that was delicious for the first 4/5. I'm gonna go home and eat a tuna sandwich. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you soon. And yeah, so thank you so much to everyone who sent in there's a fly.